Hi, welcome to episode 333 of The Corner of Knit and Tea. My name is Laura. I'm also known as Fluffy Kira on Instagram and Twitter. I blog over at thecornerofknitandtea.com, and that's where this episode and every episode show notes will be. I sell my knitting patterns and my handspun yarns in my Etsy shop, which is called The Corner of Knit and Tea. And I am on Ravelry as Fluffy K, and there is a Corner of Knit and Tea group. They are not very active anymore, with the exception of Tour de Fleece. So hi, how are you? It is Monday, June 14th. I hope that you have had a lovely weekend. I am overpeopled. This weekend we actually got out and did a ton and saw a ton of people, which we haven't done since the beginning of the pandemic, and I'm kind of tired today. I didn't realize the sort of mental toll it would take, and I used to do lots of things outside the house, but it has been so long that I am just really kind of exhausted today. So it was all good stuff. My husband went out of town this past weekend to do some bike riding, which he had a great time, although he was out in the hot sun all weekend. It was in the 90s, so he was kind of exhausted as well. Saturday, June 12th, was actually Knit in Public Day. And I woke up that morning and saw one of my friends in the UK talking about how it had been Knit in Public Day and there hadn't been much going on. And so I messaged my knit group and said, does anyone want to meet up today for Knit in Public Day? None of us have really met in person since the beginning of the pandemic, although we have Zoom meetings twice a week now at this point. So we have stayed in close contact with each other, but we haven't actually met and knit together in person. So it turned out a couple of us were available, and we went to a local, it's a restaurant, bowling alley, bocce court place, but it has an outdoor patio. And so, and it is a covered outdoor patio. And so even though it was hot, there was a really nice breeze, and it was covered, so it was shaded. So we sat in this outdoor patio with the breeze blowing around us, drinking iced tea, eating yummy desserts, and knitting. And there were only 3 of us there, but it was absolutely wonderful. And so we sat for several hours and knit, and then I came home, and Wes was gone overnight, so I was by myself. So I binge watched Shadow and Bone this weekend on Netflix, which I liked, and I got a ton of knitting done, which was great. So then yesterday just kind of ended up being a crazy day. I went to the market in the morning, and of course that was overflowing with people. Wes has actually been doing the marketing since the beginning of the pandemic. And we used to, before pandemic, we used to go to the market together every week. But we haven't been doing that because we decided we'd reduce our risk and only one person would go. And he has offered to go almost every week since the pandemic started. So I went yesterday, and there were a ton of people there, no masks, no nothing. And so that was kind of overwhelming. And then I came home, and I had knit a baby gift for our friends. I had showed you the blanket that I knit, and they came by to pick it up. And so we chatted with them for a while. And then Wes has some family that's been doing a road trip around the country, and they came through here last night and today. And so last night we met them, and we had dinner and dessert with them. So I ended up seeing a bunch of different groups of people this weekend, and it was so many people and so much social interaction. And last night I was absolutely exhausted. And it's not like I did a ton of physical stuff over the weekend. I mean, we mostly just sat and chatted and ate, so I didn't make a lot of physical effort. But mentally, I'm exhausted. And so that's kind of an interesting side note to getting back into, quote, normal. And of course, it's not normal yet. I mean, as much as some of this feels normal, it's not yet. So yeah, so we're going to meet up with them again this afternoon. And to spend some time with them before they'll leave tomorrow morning. So yeah, so that's kind of been my weekend. In terms of crafting, it has been, kind of up and down. I started that project for Roxy. I started her sweater, and I actually started and ripped it several times and was unhappy with it, and now I have kind of settled into a rhythm on it. And because I was having so much trouble with it, I picked something else to start, actually two something else's, which I'll talk about. So I do have crafting to show you, and I have some fun crafting to show you, and so let's get to it. So today I am drinking White Pearls, which is a white tea, and the deal is that it is white peony silver needles, and they're all curled up into little balls until you put them in the water. So they do look kind of like pearls. So they're little balls. And this is from Tea Runners, which is a great company out of Canada. And I really like a lot of their teas. I have had this one before. So this is just a pure white tea, and I am drinking it in my favorite Kansas mug, which says, "Dear Dorothy, hate Oz, took the shoes, find your own way home. Love, Toto." So I always thought that one was amusing, especially when I moved to Kansas. So that's good. Maybe I'll get a little caffeine in me. It is about noon right now. I got up early and worked this morning so I could take later this afternoon off. I still have a little bit more to do. Some lunch. Maybe I'll get in a workout. I didn't work out at all this weekend because there was just so much activity going on. So yeah. So the first thing I'll talk about is Roxy's sweater. I was originally intending to do little sock arms by Stephanie Lotvin, who is Telly Bean Knits. And that pattern is written in, so it's a bottom-up sweater, and it's in the round. So you knit the sweater all the way up, you separate for front and back and do those, and then you do some short row shaping and knit the sleeves from the top down. And the reason it's called Little Sock Arms is because it was a pattern that came to her out of a desire to use some of those stripy sock skeins that we get that are so gorgeous and use them in something else. And of course, they are they don't do as well when you knit a full sweater pattern because there's so much width in the sweater fronts and backs, but of course sleeves are really approximately the same size. They might be just a little bit bigger, but approximately the same size as socks, so you can use your fun striping sock yarn for the sleeves of this sweater. So part of the problem that I was having was with gauge. The gauge in the pattern is suggested at 6 stitches per inch, and I was having a little trouble getting that. And also, I wasn't necessarily loving the fabric that it made at 6 stitches per inch because it felt kind of loose to me. And part of that, I think, is a problem in the yarn that I selected. I am using a fingering weight yarn, and it is quite thin. It is one of the 463 yards to 4 ounces, as opposed to a lot of sock yarns are about 400 yards to 4 ounces. So the sock yarn is just a little bit, it is on the thin side of fingering. It is a light fingering. And so I was wondering if that was my problem. So for a little while I tried casting on in something else. I eventually ripped several cast-ons, and I actually did a gauge swatch and was so-so on it. And then I was trying to decide, did I really want to do it in the round from the bottom up because I wasn't liking what I was doing. So ultimately I have decided to mash up 2 patterns. I went ahead and took the Flax Light, which is a free pattern from Tin Can Knits. They originally had the flax, which was in a worsted weight, and then they have the Flax Light, which is a fingering weight sweater. And it is also written for 6 stitches to the inch, which I am not quite getting, but I am pretty close. And the flax is actually a top-down sweater with raglan shaping. And the Flax Light, and they both have, the Flax and Flax Light have purl ridge details, which I have elected to omit. So basically what I'm doing at this point is I'm going to knit a top-down raglan sweater, and I am going to do the raglan sleeves, so I will, when I separate, actually I have separated, when I separate the sleeves from the body, that is where I will pick up with the self-striping sock yarn. So I am knitting for Roxy in 2 yarns from Haveerland, and I don't think I don't have the other one with me. I'm using 2 yarns from Haveerland. It was inspired by a stripy colorway that she calls Unicorn Taco, which is a purple, a pink, and kind of a minty green, and then there is a 4th stripe, which is kind of a speckled colorway, and I had her dye me a special skein. She custom dyed for me a skein of the speckled colorway, so that is what I am using for the body. So last week I think I showed you the bottom ribbing. Well, I ripped that, I recast it on, I ripped it again, I did a gauge swatch, and now I am knitting the Flax Light. And so I am knitting the top-down raglan, and I actually have finished the raglan portion, and now I am just in the body. I am a little concerned about length because I suspect I need closer to 550 or 600 yards, and I only have 463. I only have the one skein. To maximize that, I went ahead and cast on, the flax has ribbing up at the top, and I went ahead and cast on after the ribbing, and I will pick up and do the ribbing at the collar, possibly in a different color if I need to. And so I am working on the top down, and like I said, I only just separated the sleeves. I've got maybe 4 or 5 rows. You can see where I separated the sleeves for the body, and now my plan is to knit the rest of the skein, whatever I have, until I run out down at the bottom. And if it doesn't look long enough to me, I think I'm supposed to knit something like 13 or 14 inches based on the pattern. If I do not get that out of what I have left here, which I do have a decent amount left, and it is fingering weight, it will go a ways. If I do not have enough, I will try and find some contrast color for the bottom as well. What I haven't decided is whether I just have to see how this goes. I will pick up and do this when I run out of this for the body. If I have not completed the hem, I will actually pick up and do the sleeves then, because what I have not decided is whether I will try and pull some of the colorways out of the unicorn taco. For instance, whether I will just take the colored stripes and do stripy pearl neckbands, or whether I will find a complementary color or a something to do the edges. So to be determined. This is a bit of an experiment, and part of the reason I think that I might run out of yarn is because, of course, in the sock arm sweater I had plenty, because I didn't have all this sleeve portion. And I know it's not a ton, but it is some. I didn't have this sleeve portion because this portion would then be knit later in the striped sock yarn. But that's not really, it's hard to do that when you are doing a top down. It's not really possible. I suppose it might, well, no, maybe. I suppose it might be possible if you were willing to kind of go back and forth in rounds, and because the problem is that you can't knit in the round if you have like 2 balls that you need to maintain for the actual sock arms. So it was just going to get very complicated, and so this is what I have so far, and actually this is the project that I plan to take with me this evening when we go out, because at this point it is just round and round. I'm not going to do any body shaping. I am just going to knit in the round until and get as far as I possibly can with this skein, and then I will make my next steps and make some decisions about those steps. So that's what I'm doing here. I didn't get as far as I wanted to, partially because it took me a little while to decide what I wanted to do, and then I cast on something else, and that's been taking my attention too. But I am pleased with the progress I have made, and my guess is I'll finish the body this week and maybe even start on the sleeves. And, you know, we'll start figuring out what else I want to do for the rest of the sweater. I'm thinking maybe I have some scraps in colors that are not pink, purple, or mint green, you know, and maybe I can find a blue or a yellow or something that would go with some of the other colors in this yarn, and then I could just go ahead and finish it off with that. So I haven't decided yet. It will be a little bit of a mishmash, but we'll see. I think it's going to be a fun sweater, and I will probably do Miles exactly the same way. His yarn is slightly different. His yarn is more like 420 yards. So his will be a little bit thicker, so it might be a different gauge. Part of the other reason that I was concerned about the gauge is it's not super see-through. I mean, you can see that it is a little sheer, but it's not super see-through. I mean, I'm pulling it out now. But I guess part of me, so I wear a lot of fingering weight sweaters because I actually like the weight quite a bit, and I find them wearable year-round. But typically, I knit thicker sweaters for the kids. Their birthdays are in October, and they live in Chicago, so I like to keep them warm. And my concern is just that this is a fairly lightweight sweater, and I wasn't sure how useful it will be to them. So yeah, there's that. The other thing I will say is that the flax light comes in kind of bands of sizes, and so the sizing was 6 to 8 and 8 to 10. and Roxy will be 8 this fall. So I actually opted to go up to the 8 to 10 size, which is also part of why I think I might run out of yarn. But my concern was that if I made the 6 to 8 size, there wouldn't be room for a t-shirt underneath it, and also she probably would only be able to wear it one season. And my thought is maybe she'll be able to wear this into the spring and for the following year if I knit it a couple sizes bigger. So, and even if it's a little big, she can probably roll up the sleeves and it'll be kind of a oversized sweater now, and then she can grow with it for the next couple years. So I'm hoping it will be a favorite. I'm hoping she'll like it. I'm hoping it will meet my expectations. But now I am well and truly on my way. So again, this is a mashup of the Flax Light by Tin Can Knits and the little sock arm sweater by Stephanie Lotvin of Telly Bean Knits. Obviously the idea is hers. I'm using a different pattern to sort of knit the same idea. And the yarn is by Havirland, who has an Etsy shop. It's Havirland. All of this will be linked in the show notes, which you can find over at my blog. And I should say that none of the links on my blog go to Ravelry anymore. They all list where patterns are available off of Ravelry. And if you are still using Ravelry, you can just plug in those pattern names and designer names and you'll find them on Ravelry. So yeah, so that is project number 1. So while I was knitting and gnashing my teeth and pulling it out, and then I did a swatch and waited for the swatch to dry, I needed to cast on something else. And so the first thing that I did was, I think it was like Tuesday evening, and I was really frustrated, and Wes was going to bed. So my craft room is right next to our bedroom, and I didn't want to go in here and toss the stash and try and pick out a bunch of things. So what I decided that I was going to do was that I was going to maybe cast on for something else, a quick project that would be easy. And I knew I had a bunch of yarns caked up. And so what I decided I was going to do is maybe start casting on for some of the kids' winter gear. Every year I knit my niece and nephew some hats and mittens and scarves because they're growing pretty quickly. And so I was like, well, I can just start knitting hats for them. That's no big deal. So I came in and I started looking among my caked up skeins, and I figured I would just use some fingering weight yarns because I had yarns caked up. And the 2 yarns that I had caked up already were, I had this skein, which is a spun right round skein, and I think I bought this at, when I went to Rhinebeck, so that's several years ago. I bought it at the Indie Untangled show, and it is just a pale blue with lots of fun speckles in it, and so I had that caked up, and then I also had caked up a skein of Mountain Colors in Barefoot, which is a superwash merino mohair nylon blend. It's great for socks, and it's in this like warm brown colorway. And I was ooh, it's got fuzz on it. And so I had these 2 colors, and I had actually been using them for a color work project that didn't really work out. And so I decided, hey, I could hold them double stranded, and it would lighten it up, and it would make kind of a neat marled speckled hat. So I went on Ravelry. I was just gonna. So here's the thing. I'll say this in my quick 2-second. I'm kind of annoyed at Ravelry because I do not appreciate that they are not making their site accessible for everyone. I have curtailed my kind of hanging out on Ravelry because I don't find the forums comfortable to read anymore, and so I am spending a ton less time on Ravelry. That said, I am having a really hard time finding replicating the use of the pattern database. And so I find that a lot of times I will use the Ravelry pattern database to find a pattern that I want to knit, and then I will go see if it's available to purchase off Ravelry, and then I will purchase it off Ravelry. So I'm still in an in-between place with that. And so I will say I did go on to Ravelry to look at some hat patterns for children using either fingering doubled or worsted weight. And actually what I came across was a really great pattern from Tin Can Knits called Snap. And one of the things that I love about Tin Can Knits is they have a lot of free patterns. Their patterns are really simple and well written. And their patterns are offered both on Ravelry but also on the Tin Can Knits site. So I went to the Tin Can Knits site and purchased Snap. And Snap is a bulky weight hat meant to be used with leftovers from your sock yarn stash. And they suggest that you use 4 strands of fingering weight. So, or they also, the pattern also recommends you can use like a strand of DK and 2 strands of fingering weight, or a strand of worsted and a strand of fingering weight and a strand of lace weight. They've got all these different combinations, and ultimately you end up with something that's a little bit bulky and a whole lot of fun. And a lot of the hats in the photos in the pattern are kind of gradients, which they create by holding several strands together and then dropping one of the strands at a time and adding a new strand. And so the first thing that I started was I went and looked, and I have a whole bag of scraps that I'm using to crochet a ripple blanket. But I honestly don't do more than a couple rows per color, and some of the skeins I have lots left. So I went and started looking, and the first couple skeins that I pulled out were, oh, I don't have the fourth one here. So I pulled out, I had these two, and then I pulled out, I had a kind of burgundy purple colorway, and I think this is a Treasure Goddess. It's her sock base, and she's a friend of mine, and I've used this, I can't remember specifically what I used this one in, but I've got some leftovers here. And then I had kind of a bright blue that I used to knit, last year I used it to knit Jessie Maid's Ripple crop top, although mine was not cropped. Anyway, so I started with the cuff, holding them together with this bright blue, and I was super excited by that. And then I was like, well, what am I going to do to kind of change things as I go on? And I realized that in there I had stuck the second half of a gradient that I had dyed, and I called this the Tequila Sunrise gradient. I dyed this myself using a sock blank, and I knit a shawl with the, so many things. I dyed this yarn. It was a Knit Pick sock blank, and it was a double sock blank, meaning a sock blank is just a piece of fabric that is usually machine knit up using strands of, well, most commonly sock weight yarn. And the deal with sock blanks is that you can dye them if you want to dye them yourself, and then you can actually knit directly from them. And if you have a double blank, which is 2 strands knitted together at once, when you pull them apart, you basically have 2 matching cakes of yarn or 2 matching bits of yarn, so you could knit socks that match each other. And so I had purchased a double yarn sock blank, and then I had dyed them at a friend's house on a dye day. And you can't see entirely, but I had knit with this before. I started with the out at a yellow. Now I'm in kind of a yellow orangey section. Then I have orange, then I had red, and then you can't really see inside, but there is a little bit pink and purple there, sort of at the end. And I had turned one of these into a, I think, Casa Pinka shawl. I had used one of my gradient skeins along with a dark color. And so then I found this gradient skein, and I thought this would be perfect because not only am I making a gradient hat, but I thought I would also make a matching scarf and then make matching mittens. So it would be like a full set for him. So this is what I have so far. Those are my 4 colors. And of course, I'm mostly in the yellow portion of the skein. I'll probably get into the orange part for the hat. And then the remainder, it'll be a slow gradient through the scarf. And then if I have any left, I'll do the mittens. And if not, I will add more of this blue to the mittens. I will also run out of this one at some point. I should be able to keep these 2 consistent through all 3 pieces. Because there's 400 yards per skein, so I should have plenty as strands in the things that I'm making. So my hope is that these 2 will kind of keep it looking like a set, even though I add in other colors. So this is the Snap Hat by Tin Can Knits, purchased on their website, and I am knitting this. It's really kind of a plush, squishy hat. It'll be super warm, and I'm loving the way it's kind of knitting up and looking kind of marled, and I think this will be super fun for him. And then, like I said, I haven't decided whether I'm going to do a stockinette or garter scarf, but it'll just be kind of a long scarf that matches the hat, and then again, I'll do some mittens. And I don't know if I'll quadruple strand the mittens, only because well, maybe. I'll have to find a bulky mitten pattern. The scarf I probably won't use a pattern. And I'm not doing anything. I chose this hat, well, a couple things. The Snap Hat is actually written to be knit and then turned inside out. I haven't decided because the reverse stockinette looks nice as well and also would show some fades. And I haven't decided yet for sure whether I will turn it inside out or not. I'm thinking not, because I had 1 or 2 sections where I missed picking up the, oh, right here, where I missed picking up one of the strands, and I don't really want that on the inside or on the outside of the hat. So I haven't decided, and because I started knitting, I stranded my strands in on that side. This is fixable because I could put them through to the other side, but I haven't decided yet. Anyway, so I also haven't decided whether I will do a garter stitch scarf, whether I'll do a stockinette stitch scarf, what exactly I'll do. I'm sure there'll be some ribbing and maybe even some garter edges to keep it from rolling. But my plan is to just kind of have fun with this and knit some fun accessories. So I decided to start on this because it was an easy project to pick up, because all of these were already wound, so I didn't have to do anything. I just grabbed kind of a bin of yarn with some leftovers and took myself out to the living room, and I worked on that for Tuesday evening. On Wednesday, I still was kind of in a funk, and I was not really ready to start Roxy's sweater again yet. So, and I started thinking about things that I might want to do for myself, and I had put away a sweater quantity for myself for a sweater that I was going to do an informal knit along with one of my coworkers. And so I pulled that out and cast on. So the pattern is the dovetail sweater, and I am a bad podcaster because I did not remember to bring the name of the designer, and it is not a super common name, so it is not coming to me right now. There will be links in the show notes. And the dovetail sweater is a sweater pattern that was written for Fairmount Fibers, who is the U.S. distributor of Monostel Uruguay. It is a pattern that uses Monostel Uruguay yarns, their Alegria Grande, which is their worsted base. It is superwash merino and nylon. It comes in amazing colorways. And recently they also started selling, I think about a year and a half ago, they also started selling Alegria Grande in what they call bocados. Bocados is Spanish for little bites, and they are basically mini skeins, and they are mini skeins of the worsted colorways to be used in color work. And so the dovetail sweater actually has a colorwork yoke. It is, I will say it's, I won't call it complicated colorwork because the most you're doing is a 1x1. So it's not complicated at all. It actually would be a great introduction to adding a little bit of color work and some fun color in the yoke. And then the rest of the body is done in a plain color. I am doing mine in the bocados. I did purchase bocados because I wanted those pops of color, but I am also using a different yarn, and I don't know that I do have one with the label. This is a special batch of yarn. It is a small batch that was run at a little mill called Abundant Earth Fiber. They are outside of Seattle on an island, which is kind of fun. I've never actually been there, but they were a client for a little while, and they ran this gorgeous batch of what they were calling natural speckled in the pepper colorway. It is 90% US merino and 10% Washington tarhi, and it's a DK weight, a 100 gram skein, 230 yards. And they called it pepper because it looks very salt and pepper. It is the natural color, and then it has a little bit of dark mixed in with the light. So it's very speckled and kind of a neutral, it's really like a natural oatmeal color. And I really have been wanting to use this yarn in a project. I have tried to use it in several sweaters. I was having a little trouble with gauge, and honestly, I think that's because I'm not sure this is a DK weight. So, I think that's the conclusion that I've come to, because I've tried to knit it up at a DK and worsted weight gauge, and I usually end up not quite there. And so, and then I actually held it up to the, or I'm knitting with it in relation to the bocados. And I think it's actually a little bit thicker than the bocados, which I'm hoping is not going to make too much trouble with my gauge. I'm having gauge issues lately, and I don't really know what exactly the problem is. I didn't used to be like this, but apparently I am now. Typically I have to go down 1 to 2 needle sizes these days, and even then I'm not entirely getting gauge on a lot of my projects. I am a sample knitter, so with those I swatch until I get gauge, and then I don't make adjustments. With a lot of the projects for myself, I'm finding it's easier to just make adjustments. So I will talk a little bit about what I'm doing, and we'll see how this works. So this is the colorway. And like I said, I have 5 skeins of this, so I have enough to knit a full sweater. I'll probably have a little bit left over, so maybe I'll make a hat out of the leftovers. And then I bought 5 bocados. And my bocados are in the colorways. You will see most of them I have already wound up and used because I actually got really far this weekend because this is a really, really, really addictive knit. So, my bocados are, let me find the 5th one. Okay, my bocados are, now I'm in trouble. Because this is not magenta, this is something else. Okay, they'll be listed on my project page. Oh no, I think I have the, wait, never mind. I think I have the, I can tell you. I can tell you because I do actually have the tags. Okay, so this is the Natural Speckle from Abundant Earth Fiber. This was a special batch. They don't have this, but they do run a bunch of small batches, and then they also have some yarns that they keep in stock. Cactus flower. Okay, this is Cactus flower, and this is the Allegria Grande Bocados. And the base is 75% merino superwash, 25% polyamide, and they're 50 yards per 25 grams gain. So it is a good amount for color work. So this is Cactus flower. The next one I knit was Tahiti, which is this gorgeous green. And then I knit with, where'd it go? I had it just a second ago. Oceano, which is this kind of dark navy blue. And then turmeric. I have used this color in other projects before. It is just a really nice mustardy yellow, you know, and these are actually the order that they're in. And then I am using the colorway magenta, or I will be momentarily, and that is the purple. So Dovetail is a top-down sweater knit in the round with a colored yoke. And as I said, the color work is fairly easy because you are only ever knitting 1 by 1 color work. And then you do a few, so you have a few rounds of 1 by 1 color work, and then you have a few rounds of plain stockinette, and then you have another few rounds of 1 by 1, and you're just moving through the colors. And I actually finished the yellow, so I'm just at the point where I'm going to add the purple in. And I probably would have done that yesterday or today, except we were out with family, so this will probably be tomorrow night's project. And then I will be done with the color work, and then I just have the rest of the sweater to knit. Now, of course, so many things. I'm just kind of all over the place today. So, I'm calling my version of this Hot Girl Summer. I decided on this yesterday evening, or maybe the evening before, because I am seeing all those memes out there about hot girl summer now that we can go out this summer, and I don't actually want to go out that much, and I'm also not that much about, like, bikinis and those kinds of things. To me, hot summer is that, or hot girl summer, is that it's going to be really, really hot outside, and I'm going to be a hot girl because it is hot out. So, because it's so hot out, I generally stay in the house, and we keep the air conditioning turned on, because it can get to over 100 degrees here, and we have quite a bit of humidity, so it gets really sticky, and we leave the AC on at a base level pretty much all the time, because otherwise it gets super, super sticky in the house and everything gets really damp and it's really gross. But we also leave it on because it's hot out and the house gets warm. And so we end up in the air conditioning, and sometimes I'll admit we turn it down pretty chilly, and I actually get a little cold in the air conditioning. And then sometimes I actually put on a sweatshirt or a sweater. And so my hot girl summer is that it's hot outside, so I stay inside, but it's cold inside, so I might as well knit a wool sweater. So this is going to be my hot girl sweater, or sorry, hot girl summer sweater. And so it is, so it is knit top down in the round with a yoke. So now let's talk about gauge and sizing. This one is actually also supposed to be 6 stitches to the inch. And I can't get that. I am already down a couple needle sizes, because the sweater is supposed to be knit on, I think, 6s. No, I think maybe 4s and 7s, and I'm on 3s and 5s. So, that's where I am so far, and I decided that if I went down any further, honestly, I just wasn't going to like the fabric that I was getting. So I decided to stick with my gauge of 5 stitches per inch, which actually sounds reasonable to me for a DK or worsted weight sweater. And so I decided that I was just going to go with that. And I did my math, and it turns out that the best size for me to knit is actually the smallest size of the sweater. I usually knit the medium. I have a 38-inch bust. This sweater can be knit with either a couple inches of ease, or it can be knit with 6 to 8 inches of ease if you want kind of a more slouchy fitting sweater. This one is probably going to end up somewhere between the two based on my math. And so what I did is I decided to go with 5 stitches per inch, and I went with the smallest size. However, I am knitting to the medium size lengths, because a lot of what goes on is it suggests you knit X number of rows and X number of shaping, but then it says you should knit until the yoke is X inches long. And so I'm following the medium size, which would be my length. And I'm going to do a fit check. There are several increasing rounds, and I'm going to do a fit check between the next to last and last increase round. I'm going to put it on spare needles and check it out and see where I'm at in terms of my gauge, and find out if I should do the last set of increases or if I should abbreviate that somehow. So if you listen to Patty Lyons, who is an excellent designer, and I do try to listen to what she says, I should not have started knitting this sweater, because according to her, you really should never attempt those gauge. If you really want a sweater that is really nice fitting and to look as the designer intended, and you want your product to look like that, you really should not do all of this gauge math and mess around with it. But I have been a little bit fly by the seat of my pants for a while now, so we're just going to try it. So I think I have told you most everything there is to tell you about the sweater. Top down in the round, there is some short row shaping, so the back is just a little bit longer than the front, which will add a little bit of extra room for the shoulders at the top. And then, like I said, I am in the colorwork section. I have one more color to add to this section, and then that is right about, and then I start back into the main color for just a little bit, and then that is the section where we decide how much longer I should go and whether or not I should do that final increase round to get me what I need around the shoulders. And then we'll break off and do the body and the sleeves, which should be no problem. That obviously will be a lot less interesting because it'll just be in the oatmeal color, but I do like the oatmeal color, the natural color set against the absolutely lovely color work. I'm super excited about this, and I can't wait to get into this. I'm hoping maybe I'll have split for the sleeves by the time we next talk. And so I'll be able to tell you more. Of course, this will probably get put aside when I get new samples coming in, and it is summer, so I don't know if I'll put it down at some point. If not, I'll have a brand new sweater for the fall. Clearly, I won't be wearing it this summer. But again, my hot girl summer sweater and what I'm working on right now. And I can highly recommend this pattern. It is well written. It is really easy, and I am enjoying working through it. And oh, I was going to say the other thing is that I have been trying to knit the bocado section a little bit loose because, as I said, I really think that my issue with the hand spun, the mill spun yarn, is that it is not actually a DK weight. It's probably a little closer to an Aran weight, and so I didn't want there to be too much trouble. I also didn't want this section to be too snug, because the other sections were going to be puffier, and I'm hoping that I have been able to sort of knit with a little bit of a loose hand on the colorwork section so that my gauge will approximate. I'm still running about 5 stitches per inch for most of it, so I am hoping that that will be okay, and that is another reason to do a fit check and see how, I might even throw it in some wool wash and block it out before I finish the body, just to make sure that this is what I want. But I'm really, it's so pretty, and it's absolutely so addictive to knit. I think I think I cast on Thursday night. I did the entire top section Thursday night. I did kind of one color Friday night, 2 colors Saturday at knitting, and then did a little bit yesterday with the yellow. So I have just been going like gangbusters on this. This was my Netflix and knit project with Smoke and Bone, and I'm just having so much fun. I love it. So Yeah, and actually, you know what? Even though I'm having so much fun with the color work and then it's just going to be plain, I think it's going to knit up really fast because the yarn is knitting up at such a thick, cushy gauge. I think it's going to be fine. The other thing that I was talking about is if I have leftovers, I might knit a matching hat, or I have not decided yet. I will have to see kind of how it plays out, but I have thought that I could do, the sweater does not have cuff details, and I suspect that's because there may or may not be enough yardage to represent it accurately. However, I may try and do a little bit of a cuff detail with some of the colors that I have leftovers of, and you know, add a little something of interest down at the cuffs. I will not have enough to do anything at the hem because, again, I mean, these are the 3 balls that I have left from the first 3 colors, and that's before a lot of the increases. So I expect that I'm not going to have much of the yellow left at all, and maybe none of the purple. So I definitely want to make sure that I don't run out, but I might do a little bit of cuff detailing to add some fun. And even though I did not knit them in rainbow order, I'm also kind of amused that I've got my kind of pinky red, yellow, green, blue, and purple, and I feel like that's appropriate to knit in June for Pride Month. So I'm excited about that. So that is kind of a long-winded podcast today. I'm up to 40 minutes. I haven't done that in a while, and I feel like I actually had stuff to tell you and wasn't just trying to do filler. So there's at least that. But I hope that you are having a lovely week. I hope that you have had some crafting time. Maybe that you've been able to get out and meet with other people a little bit. I hope you're not overwhelmed. I know that I'm going to end up probably taking a nap tomorrow because, wow, am I just over. Yeah. Anyway, I hope that you have a wonderful week, and I will say until I see you next time, happy spinning, happy knitting, happy sipping, and I'll see you next time. Bye.